Right, so Dal Amud Aleph, as we continue, we'll do a bit of, we'll do the daf. So Tanan Rabbanan. It's Tanan, Tanan. Rabban Gamliel Oimer, Af ha-mevi mina rekem mina hagar. So this is the part of the Mishnah we kind of jumped over, so we're not really getting into it now either. Rebbe, so we have the Tanakama, we have Rabban Gamliel, we have Rebbe Eliezer Oimer, Afilu mikafar ludim lelud. So what's their maklokas? So Abaye tells us what the maklokas is. Berais hasmuchas la'aretz Yisrael umevluas batachum. Now the smuchim, this is Rabban Gamliel is talking about this samuch. So you have a city that is close to Eretz Yisrael, but it is not Eretz Yisrael, but it's close to Eretz Yisrael. What's its din? Is it din like Eretz Yisrael, or its din is not like Eretz Yisrael? And umuvluas batachum, and that's what Rabbi Eliezer is talking about. Now, what does muvluas v'tachom be? So here I scribbled on top of the psakarid. So you have cities that are delineated on the border. So that the full line will be delineated the cities. So it'll go out, it'll go in, it'll go out and go in. And if you draw a straight line from the furthest east, let's say, these two cities here that are on the border, you draw a line, so really the border of Eretz Yisrael does not include them, because it comes in and then it comes back out. So if you draw a straight line, so they would be included in the straight line, but since the borders don't go straight, except in the Middle East, where England just divided up territories, so you'd see straight lines, and then they've had civil wars everywhere since. But nowhere on any map do you see straight lines except like Jordan has straight line, Lebanon, what's it called? Whatever. All those countries that have all these issues with straight lines because they were just given or whatever. So here in Israel, they have cities. So you join the dots, but there'll be an outside, and these are muvlos, these cities that come on the inside. So they're even closer to Eretz Yisrael, Kaviyachol, and that's what. So Va'amar. So that's Rebbe Eliezer, who says kafar ludim lelud. So let's say lud is inside and then kafar ludim. And I think there's two. I think Toysa says there's two. There's two luds, because the lud by the airport is nowhere near the border. The havik. Maybe Kuvi Lepumpedesia, which is basically very close. So Shebain Kafar Ludim Lelud, Avirocho Kamubi Lepumpedesia, which is very close. So after all this, Maklal the Tanakama Salvar Hani Lo Tzarech. So the Tanakama is mashma that all those cities that Rabban Gamliel is coming to include. So Af Hamevi. So also from Rechem and Hagar, they also need to say it. Therefore, the Tanakama holds they don't need to say it. And Rabbi Eliezer says Zifilu mikafar ludim. So there, Rabbi Gamliel holds don't need to say it, and Rabbi Eliezer says they do need to say it. So the Tanakama doesn't need to say it. Ani lo tzarech. So my love bahak mefili. Demasav or lefish ein bokim lishma. The honey gemiri. So therefore, the Tanakama who holds why is he holding? They don't need to say it. Because he holds that they're baki lishma, and they've learned since they are somuch to Eretz Yisrael, they learnt just by being close to Eretz Yisrael, they learnt about it. So therefore, they learnt it. Amar saver lefeisha ein edim mitzvins. Even though they're baki, since they're in chutz aretz, then you don't have caravans coming, and therefore the edim don't come. Lekaimu v'hani nami lo shchichi. Since they're in chutz aretz, also lo shchiach. We say no. Rav matar setaimei and Rav matar setaimei. Rabba matarsa taimei dukulayam lefisha ein bokin lishma. So our whole din of the Mishnah is because it's not boki lishma. Laki bahakim. This is what the maklokas is. Tanakama savar hani. So Tanakama holds that if you're samuch, you don't need. Kevin to samuch megiri gemiri. So the Tanakama holds that those that are samuch they've learned it. They do know the difference about lishma. V'yata Rabban Gamliel lemeimar muvlos or gemiri, and the smuchos are lo gemiri. So Rabban Gamliel holds that the muvlos or gemiri and that so if, when you're muvla, it's gemiri, but to somach is lo gemiri. So therefore, here you said these muvlos only Rabbi Eliezer holds you need, because Rabbi Gamliel holds that they are gemiri, even though the ones outside here are not a lo gemiri. That's Rabbi Eliezer. Remember, muvlos nami lo nami lo shlo techalek b'medinas hayam. So here Rabbi is saying, so basically Rabbi Eliezer holds that there is a low plug. So the Tanna Kama is saying, well, let's see who's Gemiri and let's see who's low Gemiri. Whoever's Gemiri, therefore, now again, what I'm saying now is going to be important later on, after like an hour of going through all this stuff. Now this information is going to be really, really important, but I'm just going to say it over now. The Tanna Kama holds, whoever's Gemiri, that's good, it's Gemiri. And everywhere else, so where do we apply the Takana? Where at Shaykh? And Rabbi Eliezer says, no, we're not gonna have a low plug. And so that's how Rabbah is explaining the section. Now we have a bit of a problem here, because what the hell are they arguing about? Are people in the Muvlos Gemiri or not? So the Tanna Kama holds they are, and even Somuch they are, and they say no, they're not. Like, what are they arguing over? Is this a fabled Maklokas Metzius? Now, a lot of people say that, you can't have a Maklokas Metzius. I don't have a problem with a Maklokas Metzius. And they say, well, why don't you just go out and see? How tall is that wall out there? This guy says it's 10 feet tall. This guy says it's 5 feet tall. We can't have a Maklokas Metzius. Just go out and see how tall it is. Well, maybe you've got better things to do than go out and, find out how tall it is. And even if you say that it's 5 feet tall, and well, I measured it as 10 feet tall. The fact that you've said it means there's something else going on there, that it's also 5 feet tall on some type of level that you're not shaykh to. So, well, I measure with my measuring tape. That doesn't, like, who cares? The Rabban and the Chazal are not here to tell us facts of the world. They have those books, Ridley, what's it called, Ridley's Amazing Facts or whatever, and it comes out every year. So, like, I don't care what the facts are. The Chazal are here to teach me spiritual ideas that are, important for the whole of existence. So, therefore, even if they are Gemiri or not Gemiri, so then, like, who cares? It's like they're telling me, okay, I may not be able to tap into what exactly the spiritual significance of whether these are Gemiri or not right now, but that's what Chazal are telling me, not, oh look, go out and let's do a census of who knows what in all these times. Like, that's not the job of the Gemara. This isn't a storybook. It's like they said at the end of Megillah. If you want to know what happened, if you want to know Mordecai's story, then go look in the history books. It's like, you just told me Mordecai's story. No. I just told you a spiritual adventure. And it's a spiritual story that you will need for eternity. If you want to know what happened, like, go look elsewhere. So anyway, I have no issues with Maklokas Metzius. However, they will say that they're arguing over what level. They all know what level of Bucky they are. They're arguing over what level of Bucky you would need to be in order for there to be for them to be called Gemiri enough, in order that we don't need the Takana. How Gemiri do they have to be in order? So everyone agrees on the level of Gemiri. In the Tanna Kama, well, let's say, the level of Gemiri is 5 is good enough for, we don't need the Takana at all. And Rabbi Gamliel says, no, you need a level 6, and you only find that there. But at level 7 is Muvros, we don't need it. And Rabbi Eliezer says, even level 7 I need. So I'll explain it like that. I don't know if that's any better, but pick and choose. Now for Rava, so we've said that the Tanna Kama holds. So this Mar Sofer is the Tanna Kama. So he'll go like Rabbah, and then this Mar Sofer is actually Rabbi Gamliel, not Rabbi Eliezer. In Simon Kamos, so Toisus at the end here says the time of the Rabbi Eliezer lo mishum the kazaver demulvlos nami lo shchichi. Now the shchichi is for Kiyim the Shtaros, which is Rava. So Rabbi Eliezer doesn't go like Rava, is what this Toisus is saying. Ela shalot elachek b'medinas hayam, as we say close by. So we're going to see this in the Rava, but when we're basically saying the Tanna Kama goes like Rabbah, and then this Marsavar is Rabban Gamliel, and Rabbi Eliezer isn't in this, but we do give the sheets of them, and that's Rabban Gamliel as Tosis explains. So Rabbi Eliezer doesn't go like Rabbah. So Rabbah mataretz l'taimei. So this whole thing is because of moving of the Edom. The Tana Kama Savar honey caving since they're close, therefore they are common. So again, you have to have a maklokas on how common things are. What level of common is called common? So again, why is that better? The Atta Ram Gamliel Lememar Muvlos are common, but the Smuchos are not common. So therefore they're not common. Therefore the Smuchos need to say because they're not common. The Atta Rabbi Eliezer and says Muvlos Nami Lo Shalo Techalek Medina Sayam because we're not going to. So Rabbi Eliezer is basically saying that there's a low plug in the Takana. So that ends that little bit, but we're going to come back to that later. So Tana v'chachamim oimrim ein tzorich. So the chachamim then at the end say ein tzorich. Anyone remembers the Mishnah, but there's 4 bavas. There's the Tana Kama, Rabban Gamliel, and Rabbi Eliezer, and then the chachamim at the end say you don't need it. Shiamar b'fnei v'ktam ela hamevi v'nis hayam coming from chutz la'aretz to Eretz Yisrael v'hamoilech from Eretz Yisrael to other people. Mechlal the Tana Kama savar moilech lo tzarech. If the moilech is going to chutz la'aretz, you don't need it. You don't need to say it. My love v'makim kamiflegli the mar savar she'ein lefi she'ein b'kein lishma. Because the poshut svar of why somebody coming from Eretz Yisrael to chutz la'aretz would not need to say b'fnei nechtav is because you're talking about bekiyim. If they're baki, you don't need to say it. However, there aren't people from Eretz Yisrael in chutz la'aretz, and therefore v'hani gemiri, so therefore you would not need it. But mar savar, this would be the chachamim later on. Lefi she'ein edim mitzuyin l'kaimo, because the moilech there aren't edim there to see the signatures, to makaim the signatures on the star. V'hani nami lo shchichi, because going to Eretz Yisrael, therefore you're not shchiach. So Rabba mataros l'tamei v'Rava mataros l'tamei. Rabba mataros l'tamei d'chulei alma lefi she'ein b'kein lishma. So the whole thing, everyone holds that it's ein b'kein lishma. V'haki b'gezeres moilech atu mevi kamiflegi. So we have a gezerah. So according to Rabba, you do not need moilech. If you go from Eretz Yisrael to chutz la'aretz, you do not need it. So therefore, the mevi you do need. So we have a gezerah that you'll have to need it going to chutz la'aretz because we already have a gezerah from chutz la'aretz to Eretz, so do we need it going the other way as well? Tana Kama Savar lo gazrin, we don't need the second gezerah, therefore moilech doesn't need. Moilech atu mevi v'Rabban and Basrai, the 4th shita in the Mishnah. So Savar, we do have a gezerah, so therefore moilech also need us because it's a gezerah moilech atu mevi. Everyone holds because you need people to say about the get. So that the Rabban are just explaining the Tanakama that since the Tanakama we were saying according to Rabba doesn't need a moilech doesn't need, but according to Rava, so therefore Rava is not going like the Tanakama. So Rava says that the Tana Basrai, the Chachamim Basrai, they are explaining the Tanakama, and therefore the Tanakama, even though he didn't say beferush that to go from Eretz Yisrael to chutz la'aretz you would need, because again according to Rava you wouldn't, but Rava you do. So now he's saying that really the Chachamim the Chachamim are explaining the Tanakama, and therefore the Tanakama also need it for the molech going to chutz la'aretz. So Tanan Hamevi get Medinas Lemedina Medinas Hayam. So this is the next part of the Mishnah. So we're now making a diuk here in this. So maybe get from a Medina to a Medina in a Medina Sayam. So in chutz la'aretz, from one state to another state, or one city to another city. In chutz la'aretz, therefore you need to say. So what's the diuk? What diuk are we made? So seemingly it's just medina le medina b'medina sayam. Now obviously there's 2 ways to do it. Either from the Medina not to another Medina, so within the Medina you don't need, or Medina to Medina in Eretz Yisrael you don't need. It's two ways to because we're saying that in the Mishnah, if you bring it to get from one city to a different city, you should just say tzarech loymar, and therefore within the same city, but and then why add Medina Sayam? Oh, because in Eretz Yisrael you do need. So why did you add that? Because in Eretz Yisrael from city to city you don't need. So, or just leave, or say Medina le Medina, therefore in the same city in Medina Sayam. If we're only talking about Medina Sayam, so from Medina Sayam le Medina Sayam, therefore in the same city Medina Sayam you do not need. So we're trying to work out where don't you need. So ba'ota Medina, in the same city, but Medina Sayam lo tzarech. So the Rava nicha, because you're in the same city, therefore you don't need Edom Lakam in the same city. The Rava kasha, why don't you need it? Because in the Medina Sayam, you are not bucky. So in the same city, you're not bucky. So therefore, you should need it. So we say you're doing the diagram. Lo tema ha ba'oita Medina Sayam lo tzarech. Ela ema b'Medina le Medina b'Eretz Yisrael lo tzarech. So therefore, we're flipping here. Medina le Medina b'Medina Sayam. So therefore, we're just flipping Medina Sayam to Eretz Yisrael. So that's good. Because we can't just say Medina because we're saying that in Eretz Yisrael you also need. So we need all those words in order to make that diuk. Eila ema Medina le Medina Eretz Yisrael lo tzarech behediya ketanila. But we have a behediya in the Mishnah. We have that. Hamevi geb Eretz Yisrael ein tzarech loimer b'fnei nechtam. So we have that beferush. So therefore that can't be the diuk. So you say, no, I need them both. So I would say, if I only had this, you don't need to, if you're in Eretz Yisrael, you don't need to say that I saw it. So that's what b'di'evet. About lechatchila, you would need to say it. Lechatchila law. You don't need, that lechatchila, you would need, even in Eretz Yisrael, you would need to actually see the writing and say it. Kamash malan, that lechatchila, even if you don't see it, you can still be a shaliach for the get. In Eretz Yisrael, because you don't need to say b'fnei nechtam. That's on Rabbah. Ve'ika. Now here we flipping how we're making the dik. Ve'ika demutiv la hachi, and there are those who make the kasha this way. Ha Medina le Medina be'Eretz Yisrael lo tzarech. So which again the Medina in Eretz Yisrael you don't need. The Rabbah nicha, the Rabbah kasha. Now again we're saying here we should just leave out these words. We say this is how. Rabbah is making the dig. Medina Be'Eretz Yisrael lo tzarech. So it's good for Rabbah because from one city to another city in Eretz Yisrael you don't need it. Why don't you need it according to Rabbah? According to Rabbah it's good because everyone's a bucky in Eretz Yisrael. Therefore, no matter what city you go from Jerusalem to Tiberia, you don't need, because Jerusalem are bucky and Tiberia are bucky. Everyone's a bucky. We don't need it. For Rabbah it's a kasha because Eretz Yisrael, people in Jerusalem don't go to Tiberia. So he says, no, you got the diagram. Lo tema Medina le Medina Eretz Yisrael lo tzarech ela ema ha ba'oita Medina b'Medina Sayam lo tzarech. So you say no, like it should be like the first diak we made to ask a kasha on Rabbah. Ota Medina, that same Medina Sayam you don't need, because that's really the only case that Rabbah doesn't need in the same city. Because once you go outside the city, then you're going to need Edom to Mekayim. Aval Medina Be'Eretz Yisrael my tzarech. So if that's true, it says just listening Hamevi Medina le Medina stam. So we're just saying that just take it out. So like I was saying, just we don't need this Medina Saddam. Hamevi get Medina le Medina. That's according to Rabbah. That's how it works everywhere. So why do I need to have this Medina Sayam? Just say Medina tzarech loimer. Therefore, you have a simple diak. Ha be Medina. Ha be Ota Medina. You don't need. So he answers lo oilam Medina le Medina be'Eretz Yisrael nami lo tzarech. So even from Medina to Medina also you don't need. So he's kind of backtracking on that day. He's like, yeah, you're right. If it should have not taught those words, should have just taught its stamps. So we're going. But so now we're saying something else. That now we have a chiddush. We need a chiddush in Rava here, because two cities within Israel, Rava's now saying you don't need. So what's the big chiddush here of Rava? Yeah, I mean, we want to be clear. Rava's flipped, and he's now saying from city A to city B in Israel, you don't need b'fnei nechtav, because Edom are there to Mekayim the star. Why are Edom there to Mekayim the star? And now we also have to say, but still two different cities in chutz aretz you do need to say b'fnei nechtav because there aren't Edom. And even though but in Israel there aren't Edom between two cities either. So the big chiddush here is Kevin Dike Oli Regilam Mishchichi Shchichi. That's a huge problem. He's saying that since you have the oile regalim, therefore it's a shchichi. So in the Rashi, so it's kind of below tikshi Rava. So they like the original. Kevin Deika oile regalim shchichi edim lekaimo. I've had Amrin la'ayal b'reish ma'asin Medina versus Israel ika benayhu leisa sami le'mehakol. So you have to take it out because we said when we said my benay Rava and Rabba, we said that it was a city in Eretz Israel. Actually, that's not true. So definitely in Jerusalem you have all the people, but since everyone's been to Jerusalem, they're gonna see all the signatures, and therefore when they go back to their towns or whatever, or they can meet up and say, well, we're trying to Mekayim this shtar. Does anyone know the signature? And therefore you'll be able to do it. So the obvious question is if you live in chutz aretz, do you not have a chiyuv la'olei regel? Do you not have to go for olei regel if you live in chutz aretz? So mashma in this Gemara, you don't, because Rava holds that in cities in chutz aretz, between two different says you do have to say b'fnei nechtam. However, this Gemara is mashma that if you're in chutz aretz, you do not have a chiyuv of olei regel. So the cheshek shloimoi Gittin, this is us. Nira beinai l'chayra tema dim came and Medina Sayam l'Eretz Yisrael nami mishchashchichi. They're also going to be there. Taha kol Yisrael mechoyvim l'halas regel. No, everyone, all of Israel chayiv in el regel. V'l'chayra nira mizeh raya l'dasa toisus b'psachim gimel divrei me'alei di yoshev chutz l'varis putrim me're'iyah. Right, and from Pesach. So here, that if you live in chutz la'aretz, this is what Toisus says in Gimel. Toisus gives a list there of why this guy's patur or whatever, and one of the things is maybe he lives in chutz la'aretz. So in chutz la'aretz there, he said we have a raya to Toisus. That here from this Gemara that if you live in chutz la'aretz, you're patur from Rei Pesach. But Kain mashma be'emes b'Yerushalmi the harayas perach alaf ayin sham. So there's the cheshek shloima going like Taisus is saying that right now it's a raya that if you're in chutz la'aretz you do not need to bring your patur for the raya if you're in chutz la'aretz. Now the Mishnah Lemelech v'lo yadati ha'heke, what remez that you're patur from the Pesach. And in the Gemara, you're not patur the zaken from the Pesach. Eila kashe'ena yochol lechol kazayis. So you have an old man. The Gemara says old men are patur if they can't eat a kazayis meat. It doesn't say you're patur. Patur from what? Mitzvah lasa shchitas Pesach. Where do you get? So Toisus in Pesachim says that you're patur from the oli l'regel. He has like a list. He doesn't have karka. I don't know where he got it from. Lo yidati if aliba to Toisus legamri. He learns it from Pesach to Re'iyah. Ele tezel zelatin to hanashim or patur. So he's learning. So women are patur from Re'iyah and Chayv and Pesach. So how are you getting that the patur from the Re'iyah? If you say that it's Davka Toisus the Alfina Re'iyah, I don't know. Lo yidati mana lahu. I don't know where he's getting this from. Says the Mishnah Lemelech. Order is the Taisus Sham because of if you live in chutz la'aretz, v'lo yadati ma hu'el hayte b'chutz la'aretz. How does it help being in chutz la'aretz? Why are you patur? T'i leputro mi Pesach Rishon. So if it's the Pesach Rishon that he's patur because he's for kol shahai rochok 15 mils patur. So that's again the Talmidim of the Rebbe would go 15 mil outside of Jerusalem after 67. Because he held, but then I think by 73 he held they screwed it up and you can't go anymore. It's not Roy. You don't have enough control over it. But for between like 67 and 73, Israel had enough control over her bias that you're mechuyev to take a go and bring the Korban Pesach. So they would go 15 mil outside. The mishadi b'chutz la'aretz. So somebody who lives in chutz la'aretz patur legamri from Pesach Sheni. Zelo yadati. So I don't know where he's getting that from. Ve'af b'mitzvahs re'iyah lo re'iti shepoter l'misha davar chutz la'aretz. Sof davar shedivrei toisus metchilim atzufim tzrichin etzli Talmud. So they answer the Mishnah Lemlech like the Shlomo the Cheshek Shlomo and say that again the raya for Tosfos is our Gemara Daled Amabes in Gittin. That's mashma that the early regel is potter in chutz la'aretz. Mishnah Melech isn't saying so much as you're chayiv. He says never li you're chayiv, and I don't know why Tosfos is saying otherwise. So I mean the Cheshek Shlomo has brought some rayas with Daled Amad Aleph and the Yerushalmi. We're just getting the rayas that in chutz la'aretz you're potter then from Re'iyah, and Tosfos is talking about the Pesach as well. So seemingly everything you're potter from. Tinach bizman shebeis hamikdash kayim. So that's all good. Where are you chayiv lo regel? Only when the Beis Hamikdash is kayim. When it's not Beis Hamikdash, like today, you're not chayiv lo regel. And so going up the horror bias for your regels, you're not chayiv. Just like you live in chutz la'aretz. Bizman she'ein Beis Hamikdash kayim, my iklamim. What are we doing if the Beis Hamikdash isn't kayim? Kevan de'ika batidinim kaviyim shchichi. So where you have the batidinim, you get into a whole batidinim kaviyim ba'arayis. Katakan's Ezra on the 2nd and the 5th, so therefore you have the Sharias are going there, and they go Ladum B'Mokim Havad. The different ways to understand this is this only the cities that have it, or when they're going back as well. And then, so what do you do today? Do we have Beit Dinim today? Is it only the big cities? Now, this Gemara is a bit strange because it seems to be saying that, like the Beis Hamikdash, it seems to change. We keep changing our laws. So Rava, when the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, Rava, you got to change your din. Now you didn't need it for the Beis Hamikdash, and now you do again. Oh, we have no, it's okay because we have Bati Dinim, so now we are again. So what are we changing all the time? And like, why would I change the din based on? And then what do we have today? If we have Bakim, are we Bakim today? So why does the din keep changing? This Gemara is mashma that the din is changing as to whether the Beis Hamikdash is there or not. It'll be destroyed. So therefore, you have to change the Now there's a Gemara on Vav Amud Aleph. Basically says that Bavel is like Eretz Yisrael for Gittin, which also seems to say that we can just flip and change the halacha as things change. And then we have this Tosfos, this Ramba. So Mikan, so it says Shani B'nei Yehuza denied these, but B'nei Yehuza it still needs, even though Bavel doesn't need, because they're moving around, whatever. So Mikan Posuk Rabbeinu Tam Tahashta Bizman Azet Tzarech Lomer B'Kol Mokum B'Fnei Nechtav. So that's even Eretz Yisrael you need, even though we're like Rava. Damer L'Feish Edim Mitzoyin L'Kaimo V'Lo Misham Lishma B'Kol Mokum Tzarech Ahashta B'Kol Mokum Osnaidi B'nei Mechuza. So here Rabbeinu Tam is poskening based on the status of the places you're in, that will define the halacha. So seemingly this halacha which we're learning b'fnei nechtav, it's just based on whatever's going on right now in the time which we have. So the Rambam, while talking, and this is in Hilchos Giroshin, the Rambam was talking about where is this Eretz Yisrael where we don't need to do it. Nahar Yisrael, Sanim Shabiyam and Gadol Shabatocha Tochum Shali. So Herei Hen Eretz Yisrael So basically, for the whatever the Hilchos Truma are, that's what will define the whatever Eretz Yisrael is. So this is like going back to the Gemara and say whatever the Gemara said that Gemara said that Eretz Yisrael your patur Bavel Eretz Yisrael the Gittin, and all of a sudden Bavel, and for sure now Bavel is not like Eretz Yisrael. There's no one living. Bavel is Iran, so there's not many people who maybe Iraq and Afghanistan. So they had some the armies, as the American armies were going there. You have the chaplains of the army, so they'd be the Talmid Chachamim of Bavel. But the Rambam is just basically going based on whatever the Gemara says. The Gemara says Eretz Yisrael your patur, so Rambam says whatever Truma. Again, this has nothing to do with who's living there, what's going. Whatever the Truma is, that's what Eretz Yisrael is. It's nothing to do with the give and take of these ideas of where do we need it, and the basic English isn't there anymore. Do we really need it anymore? So the Rambam is just going about just a simple halacha, and we're not changing. So the Rambam is like. This is the Takana. We're not changing the Takana. Whatever the Chazal say in the Gemara, that's what we're doing. And Tosfos must have the Ran here. Now here the Ran says the Rambam, but the Rambam didn't say this, and everyone says that you have to change the Girsah to the Ran. Dehedna Eretz Yisrael chutz aretz. We just saw that. Whatever. Gittin. The haleke bate dinim. So this is from the Ramban. His teacher was the Ramban. The haleke bate dinim de kavi. Because since we just said that you have to have a base in kavua. So for Eretz Yisrael, it doesn't have base in kavua. When the Ramban got there, he didn't have a minion. He got to the old city. There's the Ramban's shul in the old city. When the Ramban got there, he didn't have a minion, and he had to pay people to come from like Haifa and stuff to make up minyanim. So Rabbi Wein said that how do you be rich in Eretz Yisrael? Kam is very rich. So the Ramban was very rich. So he came to Israel. He had to spend all his money making up minyanim and stuff like this because there was no. He said the old city was desolate, and so whatever he was there and doing stuff. So there in his time he says that there's no bate din and kavim. Misavanami de bechol dochta hakol lefi ma shehu inyan. So everything. So the halacha here is going like Tosfos. The halacha is whatever the inyan of that place is. That's how we're going to give the Pesach, and the Rambam is just like no, whatever the Gemara says. So what are they arguing about? Anyway, so we've actually seen this Mata Yehonathan before. I think we did it in Ksubas. Now the Shulchan Arukh says this. Yeah, so there's a thing called Gilui, and any liquids that are left over, you can't drink them because we're worried that snakes are dumping their poison in there. And the Shulchan Aruch says, we don't care about snakes' poison anymore because we don't have snakes amongst us, and therefore it's mutter, even if you have a giloi, therefore we don't care. Gemara says it, but we don't care because it doesn't apply today. There's lots of things that are osir in the time. Asr b'minyan, so that the Gemara asred it, what they're based in. Even though the time was bottled, you need another minyan in order to bottle it, lahatero. So therefore, how can where does Shulchan get off by just going against the whatever the Gemara says? We see plenty of times that the reason behind the Tukana. So why is here different? So hefer shemetihu. So the Matayon is going to explain the true difference as to when you mevatel the tekanas and when you don't mevatel the tekanas. Where there's no tanai, could go to not do malacha by erev pesach acher chutzos because of the Carbon Pesach. So you can't do malacha after chutzos on erev pesach because of the Carbon Pesach. or don't eat samach lemincha el never Pesach. To those who hold the samach lemincha gedoyle tan misham Pesach. Even though now there's no Korban Pesach, so therefore the tam. So what's the point? What's the whole point? Because you might not bring your Korban Pesach. You know, it's like how many times have you got involved with something on Erev Shabbos, and then it's like, oh crap, you know, I really didn't have to do that, but I'll do it anyway, and then you barely have time for your shower, or you know, your mincha wasn't really so geschmack because you were like, you got there late because you did everything in because you were doing stuff on Erev Shabbos. So on Erev Pesach, you said, no, you're not like doing anything on Erev Pesach because, like, what are you doing? You just didn't have time. You got there, you know, and the Kohen didn't have time to check your Korban Pesach. I mean, it's just like, get there early and do it early and don't be doing malacha. Oh, I'll do it later. Well, maybe you'll come. So that's why you're not allowed to do malacha. But if you don't have, if you cannot bring your Korban Pesach, so therefore, bittul atam. The bittul atam, mikol malkum kaven to kavar, since it's aser b'minyan, without any tanai, hashanami aser. Now this is the thing, without any tanai, and we'll see when we do see what a tanai is. We'll come back and explain what there's no tanai there in the. Mashenkin heket the b'shas shenes or hayebat tanai. It's completely different where you have a time where there is a tanai, and it's basically by the Korban Pesach it's a blanket iser, but by other things when they made the takana it was not a blanket iser. Come on, what is the thing that does not have a blanket iser? Is chalav shel goy, chalav Yisrael. Not Yisrael. That is something that is going to say Shetzarech le'yos Yisrael yoshev v'ruhu. So you have to have a Jew sitting and seeing it. So again, you have Re'iyah versus Yediyah. So the Gemara says he sees it. So it's just, what does the Re'iyah mean? So that's because you need to see him so he doesn't mix in the treif milk. That's why if you see it, it's not aser. So that's how it's showing that. So now, since there's no tame, this like you saw it. Why is it like you saw it? And I was going to explain. Because even at the time they have the gezerah, when they made the problem of Chalav Yisrael, they did not make a blanket gezerah that no matter what, that there's no. But even if you, he's saying even at the time where there was no, non-kosher animals, also in the time of the gezerah. So if you have in the time, let's say you have somebody who's tameh at the time of the Korban Pesach. So where you have someone who's tameh, he comes to the he comes to do the Korban Pesach. He can't do the Korban Pesach. So I would think that he would be allowed to do malacha after chutzos, because the whole Korban Pesach doesn't apply to him. So over there it says that even if someone is tameh, he still is not allowed to work after chutzos. So therefore, there's a low plug. This gezerah is for everybody at all times, even if the tam doesn't apply to you at the time of the gezerah. The tam doesn't apply to you. You still have to have the gezerah. So there, we see that there's a low plug in the tanai, and therefore it's nothing to do with the tam. And how do I know it's nothing to do with the tam? Because even if the tam doesn't apply to you at the time of chazal, you still can't do it. So the Aruch Shulchan says, where you have a low plug, there's nothing to do with the time. It's because it's not that there's like Kabbalistic things going on that Chazal aren't telling you, and therefore, even if the time is bottle, then the thing still exists. However, if you have an isser that has, if it doesn't apply to you, therefore the takana doesn't apply to you. So you have a takana, and if it doesn't apply, so therefore it doesn't go to you. So he's saying that the whole thing is chalav stam. So chalav stam, where if the takana doesn't apply to you, so for example, where there is no treif animals, so therefore it's kosher. Therefore the whole ikar of the takana was made at that time. So we'll say, so therefore by giloi, the mitchila lo neser giloi ele misham eresh shel nachash. So the initial gezerah is because of the poison, but if you know that there was no nachash, it was mutter. So too now, so they have, for example, in the Gemara, if you have something high up that the nachash can't get to, so therefore you can drink it. So for the time of the takana, you see that if it doesn't apply, therefore it doesn't apply. Therefore, so now today it doesn't apply. And this is the Matter Yonatan, and this is the Pashas is accepted to how to. It's like the halacha of to how to. Other people say this idea as well. This is how to apply whether you can mevatel the gezer or not today, if it applies then or not. And again, the ikr tam he's using in his chalav stam, and therefore again in Holland there's no difference between chalav stam and chalav Yisrael, because the gezerah was there for where they were mixing in milk, treif milk into kosher milk, and since today they don't do that, as the reasons we given before, because it's more expensive, etc., and therefore they don't do what they're telling you, and therefore where places where they don't mix it in, like today, therefore there's no such thing as chalav Yisrael. Now, what's that got to do with us? How does this answer up our maklokas? So we want to find where do we see that there's a low plug in our takanas, and where do we see that if the tam doesn't apply, therefore the gezerah doesn't apply. So where do we see that? So the Rambam has to be going where we've seen low plug, because where the low plug came in, he was saying that we're not making exceptions. Even if it doesn't apply to you, we're still not going to have exceptions. That'd be the Rambam. So he'd have to hold by that person or thing, and then Tosfos and the Ran and the Ramban will be holding by whoever we saw that there is a plug, that if the time doesn't apply, so therefore the gezerah doesn't apply. So where did we see that? So if we go back to this Eretz Yisrael thing, so Rava, again, this is our halacha, matar t'let tamei, t'kuli alma l'fi she'ein edim mitzuyin l'kaimu. Tanakama, again, and this is the Rabbanan Basrai Kohen and Rav as well. Savar hani kaven desmuchus et shchiach. So therefore the Tanakama is saying that we do not need to say b'fnei nechta, b'fnei nechtam, because the tam doesn't apply. Since when we're setting up the gezerah, even at the time of the gezerah where the tam doesn't apply, because you're shchiach, therefore you don't have to say it. So therefore we see Tosfos and the Rambam going like the Tanakama, because they said they're holding that when the takana was made, if it doesn't apply to you, so therefore you don't therefore you don't do it. And then Rabbi Eliezer says, Rabbi Eliezer is going with a low plug, and therefore the Rambam will be like the Rabbi Eliezer. Now the Tzavtas Paneach says here is going like Rabbi Yehuda, the Rabbi Yehuda we had of the Mechuber, the top here, but it's far simpler and easier to go like Rabbi Eliezer. That's the sheet of the Rambam. We can argue who the Rambam's going like, but again, Pashas Halacha is going to go like the Tosfos and the Ramban, that everything's according to the Inyan today, whether you're shchiach, whether you're boki, and all this type of stuff.